Have you ever wondered why you reach for your phone the moment you wake up, even when you promised yourself you wouldn't? Or why the person who sees themselves as, in quotes, not a morning person, consistently snoozes their alarm, skips breakfast, and arrives late, regardless of how many productivity articles they read? You don't have good habits and bad habits. You don't even have habits, plural. You only have one habit. That is the habit of being yourself, with all the behaviors that includes. Your conditioned self is the only habit you have. Yesterday, we looked at why shaping your self-identity is one of the most important tasks you can take on. Today, we'll explore an interesting perspective shift to become even more effective in that task. Hey there, it's me, Core, and you're listening to Exercising Self-Control from Fitness to Flourishing. All your behaviors, that is, thoughts, words, deeds, feelings, attitudes, expectations, beliefs, are consistent with your conditioned self. Consider hypothetical Jessie, who identifies as someone who's terrible with money. She will impulsively buy coffee daily, avoid checking her bank balance, and feel anxious about financial planning. These aren't separate bad habits. They are expressions of a single, coherent identity pattern. Or take Mark, whose conditioned self is the reliable guy. He automatically says yes to extra work, responds to emails within minutes, and feels guilty taking breaks or time off. His, in quotes, helpful behaviors aren't isolated habits. They are all manifestations of the same underlying conditioning. You can exercise virtuous self-control in the moment of choice to shape the conditioned self you prefer. This takes effort. If you relax that effort before the conditioning has fully taken effect, the original conditioned self will reassert its influence. This explains why self-control takes dedication and commitment and time. This conscious effort is the only thing capable of shaping a new, conditioned self consistent with your values and goals. You could let it be shaped by the circumstances, other people, or any other random input. That is a game of chance, as we explored in the last episode. So what does this effort actually look like? It's the conscious interruption of automatic patterns, followed by deliberate choice aligned with your preferred identity. When hypothetical Jessie, our terrible with money example, feels the impulse to buy that daily coffee, the effort is in pausing long enough to ask, what would someone who's financially responsible do right now? Then acting on that answer, even when it feels uncomfortable or foreign, which it will. The effort comes in 3 phases. 1, recognition, catching yourself in the automatic pattern. For example, I'm reaching for my phone again. 2, interruption, creating space between impulse and action. For example, wait, what am I actually trying to do here? 3, redirection, choosing the behavior that aligns with your preferred identity. For example, someone who uses technology intentionally would check messages at designated times. This process feels awkward at first because you're literally acting against your current conditioning. Mark, our reliable guy, might feel selfish the first time he says no to extra work. That discomfort is the friction between old and new conditioning. It's not a sign you are doing it wrong. It's evidence you're doing it right. The effort requirement varies between people and situations. Some identity shifts happen in weeks, others might take years. There's no way to predict beforehand because it depends on how deeply embedded the current pattern is and how consistently you apply conscious choice. That need for consistency is why people often go back to their old patterns despite their best intentions. It's hard work. I went into great detail about what's required for this conscious, deliberate change process in a 4-part series. Check out How to Get Out of Bed, Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, and Part 4 for more details. The will to survive is arguably the strongest drive we possess. But this drive is rarely brought into use in our modern lives. The drive that has the most influence on our lives now is to do what has been conditioned and automatized by chance or by our own choice. This is the conditioned self. Consider how people continue eating poorly despite knowing it's damaging their health, or staying in a toxic relationship that threatens their well-being, or working in soul-crushing jobs that undermine their mental health. The conditioned self, for example, I don't deserve better, I'm not capable of more, often overpowers even our survival instinct. This happens because our conditioning evolved as a survival mechanism. In our ancestral environment, following established patterns and group norms kept us alive. The person who consistently acted outside their social conditioning was likely to be cast out, which meant a diminished chance of long-term survival. Today, our conditioned self continues to prioritize consistency and belonging over individual well-being. This doesn't mean change is impossible, just that it demands great effort. Sustainable change requires shifting the conditioned self, not just managing individual behaviors. Instead of trying to force new habits onto an unchanged identity, transformation happens when you gradually update who you believe yourself to be. The idea of the conditioned self reveals why traditional habit advice often fails and why lasting change feels so challenging. Once you recognize that you're not battling multiple habits, but expressing a single, coherent self-concept, you can begin the deeper work of identity transformation. This is the only change that truly lasts. When you see yourself as a single system, you start being more effective in making changes. Each choice affects the entire system. You literally can't separate one behavior from all the others. When you change one, you change them all. Here's what I mean. Let's look at starting a brief daily exercise practice. Starting a consistent exercise practice is easy. You only need to set aside 15 minutes in the morning and do a few simple movements. At the same time, starting a consistent exercise practice is hard. You're changing your life, not just your morning routine. Those 15 minutes will affect your schedule, your eating, your sleep, how you move during the day, your mood, how you relate to others, and on and on. There are ripple effects from that one behavior change. That's the system that is your conditioned self and your life. Here's the liberating truth hidden within this challenging perspective. You are not broken, and you don't need to fix dozens of individual problems. You have one coherent system that's working exactly as designed. You can change. You're changing constantly with every choice you make. Are you willing to participate consciously in that change, or let it happen by default? Every moment offers the same fundamental choice. Will you act from your current conditioning, or will you exercise the effort required to shape the person you're becoming? When you reach for your phone tomorrow morning, you're not just deciding about screen time. You are voting for the version of yourself you want to strengthen. Remember, practice always works. Always. So consider what it is you're practicing. The person who struggles with behavior change isn't weak. They are simply unaware that they're trying to override an entire identity system with isolated behavior changes. But now you know better. You understand that lasting transformation happens at the level of the conditioned self. This perspective doesn't necessarily make change easy, but it makes it more straightforward. Instead of fighting 100 different battles against scattered individual habits, you can focus your efforts where they actually matter, on the single, integrated system that generates all your behaviors. And please don't think of your conditioned self as an obstacle. It's your most powerful resource. By making it more consistent with the skills and behaviors you prefer, you are making yourself ever more resourceful. You can start the process right now. That's it for today. Catch you next time.